Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again on the Muslim Youth Matters podcast, where we're meeting with various voices of the community, witnesses, and experts to better understand some of the issues that the youth of the Muslim community face. The episode for today, I think, is going to be a very interesting and important one, but I'm going to also say it's probably going to have some abstract notions that we need understanding. And I think we're lucky enough to have an expert with us to speak specifically to these matters. So without further ado, welcome on our panel, Imam Zijad.
Thank you, Akhi.
So thank you very much for joining us this morning. And the topic that we want to kind of drill into is going to be the one of the relationship between religion and secularism. But obviously from there's a whole lot of ideas and themes that are associated with that. But before we jump into the topic, how about we get to know you a little bit better? So who are you? What's your background? And how did you end up here?
Some people call me People's Imam, and some people call me troublemaker. And I am comfortable with both. I was born in Bosnia. I grew up in a communist regime, decided to take on Islamic education very, very early at my age. At 18, I was promoted as a junior imam. And that has set some guidelines for my further education. Of course, much of my thinking, my values, my character has been developed through education of my mom, God bless her soul, who is a great personality behind what I am at this point in time. So my family definitely has contributed greatly to my path and the future. Islamic school that I attended is one of the oldest institutions in the region. Ghazi Husrev Beg Madrasa, that produces regularly imam for the context of Bosnia. So it's a school that definitely have textual perspective deeply rooted in Islam, but also understand the context in which it operates, and therefore produces really people of the time to lead community. Further, I endeavored to pursue my education in Islamic studies in Arabic, and I was fortunate to attend the International Islamic University in Islamabad, Pakistan, where I have been able actually to juggle between few departments, and started with Islamic law, Sharia, and then continued with Usuluddin and Arabic language. All of these have given me an opportunity to have some sort of an insight into some of the important texts of our faith. Once when I have completed it, returned back to Bosnia and was appointed as a head imam for the central region of Bosnia. However, with aggression on Bosnia, I was moved out and I finished in Croatia, where at the same time I started establishing Muslim community in Croatia and Split. And Split was some sort of a throat through from Croatia or world to Bosnia. So it was another experience that I have benefited from in terms of my networking, my relations with different agencies, social institutions, political institutions. And from there, God Almighty has given me a chance to come to Canada. And people often ask me, what is your Bosnian identity? I always tell them I'm Bosnian in memory. I love Bosnia. I love my childhood and being brought up in Bosnia in that quite a multicultural society. I would say one of the most multicultural in that sense in Europe. So my coming to Canada certainly has opened new horizons of possibilities for me. So I realized that I needed to go farther in terms of education, because my education is very limited, and I will not be able to contribute to myself or the community if I just stay within those frameworks of my knowledge. So I was picking up on some of the areas, and education came as one of the best suitable for myself. So I did my master's in education, and focus was on Islamic education and parental engagement into kids' education within Western society. And from there, my research started in Islam, because I started realizing that there is a huge gap. There are no reference in terms of Canadian Muslims. And that has taken me to the PhD program at Simon Fraser University, where I have received my doctorate. And my thesis actually dealt with the issue of hermeneutics of Islamic education and construction of new Muslim culture in the West under two conditions: faithful but reformed. And from there, actually, I started, besides only thinking about it, I started really doing some work in the area, started researching, started writing, and that has taken me to the second PhD at University of Ottawa. I'm right now doing my research, final thesis in the area of sociology of religion, specific focus on ijtihad maqasidi, independent reasoning with with looking into the context of the West. Of course, during that period of time, I have been doing many different activities, tasks. In Vancouver, I have been head imam for BC Muslim Association. At the same time, I was vice principal of the largest Muslim school in Canada. And then from there, I moved to Ottawa after my wife accepted to do her PhD at Carleton University in public policy. And I took position as an executive director of NGO, Canadian Islamic Congress, where I work in the area of advocacy and lobbying. So it's a new area where I've developed certain skills as well, with politicians and different agencies, social agencies, educational institutions, and so on. And at this point of time, I'm serving as head, as a resident imam with South European Muslim community, and marriage officer, marriage counselor, youth mentor, and I would say a community developer.
That's excellent. I think it's such a rich, fascinating journey. And as you were talking, and I didn't want to interrupt, but I mean, so many questions popped in my head that I think would be interesting because they're relevant to the type of understanding we're trying to achieve here. But I think the one that sticks the most in my mind right now is two different PhDs in two different streams or two different academic disciplines. Would I be wrong in saying that it is also a very personal journey for you? Because I see in both topics that you spoke about, perhaps someone who, and I think you addressed it directly, someone who recognizes the need for adaptation while really understanding in a rigorous manner the context in which you're going to be working. So is this, when you look at this as a project, do you see it as one or the other or both? Is this more for you personally? Is this a personal journey that you're undertaking when you're performing this? Or is it something that you feel the community should be aware of and a process that as a community we need to go through?
I think we as individuals, we can only give what we have. So if we do not develop ourselves, if we do not really take care of ourselves and some of our goals in life, there is no way that we will be able to contribute. Certainly, both of these educational endeavors were inspired by the need of the community. And as I told you at the very beginning, I have been searching where to really find myself. And in both of these areas, they are very much related. I did find they are very complementary to each other. And not only that degrees are important, but process of personal development and rethinking of your thinking in the process has made huge impact on who am I today. So, example, when people ask me, so the way you thought in Bosnia, is it similar to how you think here? No. And I think that's very normal. And that's what Islam is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Because Islam is not static as a notion. It's evolving with time. It's evolving with new things, even including Sharia. It is like as somebody said, using metaphorical approach, it's like water. Whichever way you put water in any shape, it fits that shape.
Mm-hmm. It takes the form
it
of
takes
the container,
the form
right?
of the bottle. It takes form of the glass. It takes form of, if it spills in a room. So it's very adaptive. And I think my way of looking into Islam indeed deepened, but at the same time stretched towards the sides. And with that, I could say community benefits, because I do not take anything what has been projected, what has been given to me. Rather, I think through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take fatwas from abroad,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't really help us.
Mm-hmm.
They don't fit the profile of the environment in which we live. Therefore, we have to challenge ourselves as scholars, as imams, as students of knowledge, to find new responses to old or new problems that we are facing in this context.
Yeah, that's excellent. You have worked with or seen, I think, very different types of communities through your journey. You spoke about Bosnia and Croatia, and then Pakistan. So now, obviously, you're in a very crushing majority of Muslims. And then you come to Canada. So first of all, I'm guessing you probably studied the Muslim community in Canada. So, what does it look like? What's the profile of the Muslim community in Canada? And how is it different from, or how does that make your work different from, working in a majority of Muslims in other countries?
I think that Canadian Muslims are, as compared to any other Muslims across the globe, be it with majority Muslim countries or European countries such as France, Britain, Germany, or US or Australia, I think Canadian Muslims are hand-picked immigrants. That's one of huge differences between us and other Muslims in other Western countries.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, we are not coming from one region, like in France from Africa, or in Germany from Turkey, or in UK from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, but rather we are coming from all across. And when you look into statistical analysis of Muslims in Canada, you will find out that approximately 30 to 35% are from Arab origins, 32% from Indo-Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the rest are the other part. So we are really, in a way, coming from all over the world. And another area that is very also interesting for Canadian Muslims and their profile, they are very young. Median age is between 28 and 30.
Mm-hmm.
Youthful compared to Christians and Jews and other Christian denominations. We do find that they are very youthful. So that adds to the value of Canadian tapestry in terms of population.
Yeah.
Besides that, we are also very much educated community. Minimum 50 to 60% are university plus educated. By default, they will be then contributing citizens of the country.
Mhm.
All of these do suggest that we are an amazing addition to the Canadian tapestry. And as such, I certainly feel that we need to present some of these evidences to people whom we talk to co-workers, to Canadian government, to the media, whenever there is a possibility. And besides that, to our own children, our own youth. Because if you do not know your own history, you will not respect your history, and you will not know how to use history as a platform to grow and move into your present and future.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So let's drill down now. You mentioned both the Muslims as a community and the youth. So based on this canvassing that you've done, what would you say are the biggest issues that the youth of the Muslim community are facing today?
There are many of them, certainly, but one of them is related to generational gap between parents and their children.
Mm-hmm.
And that involves religion, that involves culture, and so on. Many studies actually have been done in this area. One very unique study that has been done after September 11th by Laurie Peak, an American researcher. She suggested that American Muslim youth are having different challenges than their parents or other youth, specifically in terms of understanding of culture and religion, and how to lessen that gap with their parents. And she found some interesting things in her research. She, example, said that these young people, first they grow with inherited identity, religious identity. They are picking up from what their parents are teaching them.
Mm-hmm.
But as they grow, as they enter high schools, as they enter universities, they find themselves in a quite different realm. She calls it acquired identity. Basically, these kids start realizing that what parents brought with them doesn't mean that it is purely religious aspect of interpretation. I think it could be cultural.
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes to the next level and she calls it declared identity. Of course, declared identity could be positive and could be a negative. Everything depends on what is the source of that identity. If it is ignorance, certainly it would create troubles, as we have seen with many young people involving themselves in many of the activities that are counterproductive to themselves, to Islam, as well as to the society. But if it is a positive declared identity, it could certainly drive those young people into being productive individuals, being productive as faith people, as well as being productive as workers or employees, mm-hmm. and being productive as citizens. Bottom line is that generational gap is obvious, mm-hmm. In a Muslim community
as an issue.
It's an issue that needs to be dealt on regular basis with, be it in the masjid, be it in educational institutions, or in different forums. Another area that certainly is present, it's a question of to assimilate, to isolate, or to integrate. Mm-hmm. Many of the parents are, as any parent would be, protective of their children. But if kids stop eating baklava, that doesn't mean that they have lost their identity, religious identity. There are many things that parents need to realize, that all kids are in a better position than we are in this society. And they certainly can contribute better to themselves, and they can contribute to the Muslim community and to the society. So from here, we are asked then, so what are the alternatives for us, mm-hmm. In terms of suggestion or advice to our youngsters? Assimilation is not the path that contributes to anybody. Isolation certainly is not another option that we should ever choose. But what has happened when Muslims started coming to Canada, many of them have lost that first generation that started coming from 1817 onwards. They did not really consider religion as a reference.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, many of them lost sense of Islamic identity. Second group, when they saw what has happened to the first one, they got scared. They started segregating themselves. They've started putting themselves into their safe zones, I would call them, ghettos. Only after 1980, when influx of Muslims started coming more, because up to 1980, we have had maybe only up to 100,000 Muslims in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But after 1981, we started actually getting larger groups of Muslims coming to Canada. And we could, with some certainty, say that most of Canadian Muslims started coming to Canada after that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are talking, let's say, about 1.72 million Muslims today, let's say 1.9 million of them came in last 30 years or 40 years.
Yeah.
So it's a very young community.
Yeah.
And we cannot expect from this community as we can expect from a community that has been here, like Italians, for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, we do need to work on ourselves to create infrastructure and pick up on many of the things as others have done. But as I pointed out, with first group assimilating, second group isolating, the third group started actually constructively integrating. And constructive integration is an optimal option for us because it helps us against any extreme, be it leftist or rightist. It also earns us, we could say, trust of the larger population of Canadians. And I've seen, alhamdulillah, in the last maybe 15, 20 years, I have seen Muslims coming forward, be it in politics, be it with their jobs, be it with volunteering, be it with financial contributions, children's CHIO Hospital or other hospitals, Mission, Ottawa Food Bank. That's where our presence needs to be at this point of time. Because we remember when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he came from Mecca to Medina, as Abdullah ibn Salam narrates, Abdullah ibn Salam was a Jew at the time. He narrates that I wanted to see this person. I wanted to see him
in person. Yes.
I wanted to see his face. I wanted to see how he looks like. I wanted to see what he would say first. When he came, Muhammad ﷺ, he didn't brag about himself and his leadership. He said, Ayyuhan nas. First words that he put forward to the people, oh people. So he did not say, oh believers, oh Muslims. He said, oh people. So he addressed everybody. He acknowledged everybody who was there. Then he said, Afshu salam, spread peace among yourself. Work on peace. Be part of peace. Wat'imut ta'am. Amazing. Feed the hungry. You see a leader coming from another place and he wants to take position in Medina, but he talks about spreading salam. He talks about feeding people. And then he spoke about keeping family relations. And then he spoke about prayer. وَصَلُّوا وَالنَّاسُ النِّيَامِ. And pray when people are sleeping.
Yeah.
Basically, don't show up. Pray when others. So this suggests some sort of a new identity development that Prophet, peace be upon him, brought into the community. Development that we can also start here. Spread the peace, feed the hungry, and take care of your family. And of course, pray. Don't forget God. It's very much important that we realize that, from forgetfulness on, and that's part of our identity. And I call this verse of Surah Al-Hashr, ayah of identity. If we forget on the source, we easily could forget on ourselves. So from forgetfulness on the source springs self-forgetfulness.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you. You spoke about two big issues. The first one is a generational gap. And I wanted to ask you something very quickly that you mentioned there, especially when you talked about the idea of an acquired identity, where perhaps you start realizing that there's a difference between culture and religion
Of course.
as you mature. And I want to link it to something you said earlier, which is perhaps one of the distinctive features of Canadian Islam is that it's so diverse. That perhaps you probably don't find that anywhere else, because as you talked about many other countries that may have large Muslim populations, the majority of them are from one specific geographic area. Would you say that this complicates things more in Canada because as a youth growing up, you're not only confronted to the diversity that you see in the Canadian mainstream population, the non-Muslim population, but even within the Muslim population itself, you're going to find a huge diversity, which probably is going to cause you to question yourself and your identity, even on that front.
I think for me, that's positive, because Islam is all diverse. Muslims are not just geographically, culturally, racially diverse. We are ideologically diverse. And that's natural. And I think if we are all the same, we will not grow so fast as we grew after September 11th. Challenges are opportunities. And I think when we, as Canadian Muslims, see ourselves as a garden full of different roses and appreciate those differences, I think we would, in one way or another, unify ourselves around purposes, not around anything else. We can never be united 100%, but we could have certain purposes. So for me, diversity, including ideological, represents positive things. So if our young people really come from different expressions of Islam, for me, that's quite okay, as long as we are principled. And I know that all streams that I work with are principled streams. Therefore, being different doesn't mean being bad. Sometimes being different means being okay, being better.
Absolutely. Regarding the second issue you mentioned, and there's so much that we can say here, finding the balance of integration between assimilation and isolation, and the need, as you said, for the community to start creating its own infrastructures. So in a way, what I hear you say is basically we have to start helping ourselves as a community. And yes, it's still a young community. We have a lot of work to do. But based on your interactions with the community, with the Muslim community in Canada, how would you assess today's situation? To what extent has there been leadership and has there been initiative to start playing that role that you started describing, which is, spreading the peace and feeding the poor and taking your place in society as a Muslim and as a youthful Muslim?
I have seen many individual initiatives, and they are welcoming and they are praiseworthy. But I have not seen many that are nationwide. And that makes an impact. You see, when we stretch ourselves individually, we are not noticed, we are not seen. But when we come together as a group, I am quite positive that would make an impact on our children. It would make an impact on the image of ourselves, and certainly recognition by the government and other institutions. I have only seen some sort of recognition coming due to the elections, because we have made an impact on the elections. As far as other areas are concerned, I didn't see much. But it doesn't mean it's not there. It doesn't mean we are not working on it. We are. We are finding some of these obstacles, but until we prioritize our priorities as a religious group in Canada, I think we would be facing some of these challenges for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But if we prioritize our priorities, and if we have leadership that is pragmatic and be able to actually accommodate each other with all our similarities and differences, I am certain that time would come very soon when we would have a much better platform as a religious group in Canada.
Let me ask you the tough question, because you talked about a couple of things that I think need to be addressed. So you spoke about the image, and you know, this whole project and many others like it. And I think the biggest struggle of the Muslims is this image. So, you know, the idea that not only are you a religious person, but you're specifically a Muslim person coming into what can be considered a secular society. You know, in one way, I love how you're presenting everything, but the truth is, perhaps this mainstream image is that Islam is the problem. What we're trying to fix is the problem, which is Islam. So how would you answer a question
or
like
is
that?
it?
Or is it? And so that's what I'm asking you.
I don't think that Islam is a problem. I think we are problems. I think the way how Muslims understand their faith is problematic on many issues.
Mm-hmm.
And my reading gives me a very different picture of Islam than what I have seen in some books. Because God Almighty talks about Islam as tabi'i, it's natural. And anything natural is easy. And anything natural and easy, souls and hearts gravitate towards it. You make it hard, you make it difficult, you run away. You make it scary, crawl, people run away of it. And that is where I think our community must work in terms of new understanding of presentation of Islam to our kids, and at the same time to our friends, to our neighbors. Because part of Islamic identity is not just only spirituality. It is central notion of it.
Mm-hmm.
But next circle around it is understanding text and the context, or understanding text within the context. Next circle around it, even larger, is education and sharing of knowledge, meaning educating over Muslims about Islam and sharing knowledge of Islam with others, telling them that Islam is normal, natural path.
Mm-hmm.
And even larger circle around these three is engagement and participation. This is what contributes to the image that we spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
If you really know who we are, if you have the spirituality, and spirituality for a Muslim is basically a lens into the life and world. That's what shapes your thinking, your attitude, your behavior, your mannerism. In a way, it filters all of these things for you. Once when we come to the last level of engagement and participation, that's fruit of our spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what at this point of time Canadian Muslims need. We don't need any more talk. Islam is this. Islam. What we need is action, or living our faith in action. And our young people, if anybody can do that, they can do it. Why I'm saying this? Simply because they have tools that Canada has given to them. Their language, their understanding of the culture, and what they need only to bring this understanding of Islam within this context and operate within this context. Of course, they will not be able to do that if we, as current leadership, are not able to offer it to them. And that is why I always have thought about the idea of Canadian Muslim leaders developing themselves, having professional developments, just like anybody in a successful, area of business.
Yeah, any stream of activity.
Any stream. You want to be a good medical doctor, you have to have regular professional developments. You want to be a good engineer, you want to be a good teacher, you want to be a good driver, you have to go through professional developments. I personally think that Canadian Muslim leadership, be it administrative or religious, needs to go through these professional developments for one reason, and it is to understand that we could be library of knowledge, but if we don't know the context in which we operate, that knowledge would not help us, neither our kids or our community.
Have you seen, so basically what I'm hearing is that instead of seeing Islam as the problem, in fact, we can, if we were to truly understand its spirit, Islam is the solution. So let's say we agree on this principle.
Yes.
It's how is this implemented on the ground? What does this look like? And I'm going to push you even more to see, are you aware of specific projects or initiatives or work you've been involved in, you've seen others do, that kind of becomes the model for this work? So that, we truly show, as you said, it's, enough with the talk, let's see the action. So you see it in action that Islam can be the solution. And to me, my first point of focus here is the solution for the Muslim youth themselves and then society at large.
I certainly agree with that. Islam is an antidote to many of these problems. It's a remedy. If it is properly understood, properly applied, it could greatly benefit our young people. Did I see some of these projects that are contributing to proper understanding of Islam? I believe your own institution is one of them that is gearing towards it, because I believe your goal is to have better presentation of Islam to our young people, or to make them better citizens of this country. So and there are many of such organizations, example, SNMC, that is very dear to my heart, organization that I started working with in 2011, from the get-go, was a very social organization. We presented Islam as a social reality, not just the theological or jurisprudential reality. And when you present Islam in such a manner, people flock, people come. We started giving scholarships to every high school. We give to a Muslim and to a non-Muslim. We started giving scholarship to colleges, universities. And I'm not talking about 2-3 scholarships, yearly, maybe 50. We started putting money aside, and there are many schools that do have population that doesn't have enough food on the table when they come to school. We started giving to some schools money for breakfast for kids. If there is need in mission for those who come on daily basis, we started delivering money to them and food to them. And thanks God, we started as community organizing ourselves to actually work together with other faith groups to deliver food to these needy people, let's say, or of a food bank or a mission. So there are many beautiful initiatives out there. And what we need to do is to talk more about these initiatives, because any other religious group, any other group actually, religious or non, when they do something, some khair, some good, it is presented. It's not bragging. It's basically just saying, hey, we are part of this. And as I pointed out earlier, I personally feel that Canadian Muslims, with all their resources, and we are a resource for this country, we are an asset for this country. If we just talk a little bit more about blessings that we bring around the table, we would have much better image.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we do that? By having different organizations that work on different fronts, by having people who know how to present it. It's not just talk, how to present it, how to package it and deliver it to those who are listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks God, through all these new types of social media, we are able to access. Example, I know for sure that many non-Muslims do watch some of my YouTubes. And I get their comments. So 10 years ago, I didn't have that luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Today I have it. And many of them told me, I used to listen to these talks 40, 30, 50 years ago from my priest. I don't listen to them anymore. So we as Muslims have many things to offer to our young people, but we also have many things to offer to our Canadian brothers and sisters from other faith groups.
Mm-hmm. Initially, I thought, if I would ask you about the relationship between, religion / spirituality and secularism, I was sure that you were going to take me in a slightly more theoretical, abstract
No,
discussion. You took me to something very actionable on the ground that happened. So I think this is a great and very insightful way of looking at this whole idea. And I think it's often considered as a very problematic one that societies are contending with, how to reconcile between religion and secularism in a increasingly secular world.
I think one of the big challenges that we are all facing is this understanding that Islam, when you look into certain understandings of Islam, Islam is not only based on, as I said, theology or jurisprudence.
Mm-hmm.
There is third aspect that is called ihsan. We often speak only about two, we ignore the third one. And this is what I call social Islam. And I have faced some of the challenges as an imam. People often tell me, but you don't talk about Jahannam. I tell them, when I talk about Jannah, by default, I tell people don't go into the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So being positive,
yeah,
and specifically presenting it to our young people in such a manner, they will take it.
And this opens up another question to me, which is, the responsibility and the leadership. So the responsibility of the leadership. So if you are in a position of leadership in the Islamic communities, what does that responsibility look like? And then on the other side, and I really want to get into this topic too, how do I attract the young Muslims to step into these positions of leadership or to play a leadership role so that we start moving towards these action pieces that you're talking about?
It's unfortunate that even at this point of time, most of our Muslim organizations, institutions are run by immigrants. I think that's one of the problems. We have to have younger people coming in, brothers and sisters, for many reasons. Because many of us, we bring our own baggages from back home. And we not only understand them that way, we also apply them that way. We action them that way. And they don't work here. They are outdated. They are actually outdated in our villages back home. So what we need to have these younger people to come forward, because they're already doing that in their jobs that are executive jobs. Why not utilize their knowledge? Why not utilize their expertise? They're already experts in the area. But it seems like some of these power holders do not allow that. They don't want to allow that, because there would be then drastic paradigm shift in how community would operate. That is why I suggested earlier that it is very much important that any board member who wants to come into organization to be a board member should take some workshops in how to run that organization, what it means, what kind of accountability you would have to have. These young kids already know that because they are involved, be it academically or practically in those areas. You see, when young people see what's going on with older ones in the masjids, they unmosque themselves. They don't want to be part of it. And then they create organization like this, and they want to do spirituality, but they want to do other things as well. And that's okay. That's normal. That's how we have to proceed, because you are not in competition with anybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that is area that I think is becoming very popular at this point of time, because there are many small organizations that are popping up, be they related to presentation of Islam to young people or counseling services within the Muslim community, because these areas are not just becoming popular because they are popular, they are becoming popular because there is a need out there, niche that needs to be filled in.
Yeah, exactly. If I were to shift now the discussion, I think we spoke about community, we spoke about the youth, we spoke about leadership in the community, and some discussion about identity and the role that you can play. Now, if I were to ask you, if you were to make recommendations based on your knowledge, your very direct knowledge of Muslim communities in Canada, and you were to speak to the powers that be, you were to talk to people who run government programs, who can, for instance, perhaps fund these programs, who can work on policy analysis and policy making, where do we start, and in what direction would those recommendations go?
First thing that I would recommend to the government is they need to recognize this group. Public recognition is very much important. Because when you recognize, and thanks God, during this government week, we got it. Previously, we didn't have it. So when you have that recognition, you change the discourse within the regular population. Because right now, these people are not the other. These people are part of us. Even if they are different, we would try to not accommodate them. I don't want to be accommodated. I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be accepted. And that is where discourse needs to start. And when we get that recognition, we are accepted. We are not anymore accommodated as we have had in 2007, 2008, 9, 10 in Quebec, but rather we are accepted within the community. Number two, since we do have many people in the public policy area with government in all departments, it is very much important that community actually works with them, gives them example. When I have first time got my opportunity to write with Heritage Canada, that was exactly my topic. I wanted to impact on policy level. It's not just talk to people, politicians, on policy level. And many of these things were taken into consideration. Another point that is also very much important to be recommended to the government, I am for freedom of speech. Actually, I came to Canada for that reason. But freedom of speech that brings violence is not freedom of speech. So there are limits to freedom of speech. And I think some of these policies need to be worked through when it comes to other people. We cannot insult each other under the pretext of freedom of speech. And the government has to deal with some of these policies much more carefully, much more clearly, because Muslims have suffered quite a lot of abuse. And our young people felt ashamed of who they are. And I know that I've spoken to many of them. Therefore, government, if they want us to integrate, if they want us to settle properly, integrate properly, if they want us to contribute and feel faithful citizens of this country, they need to help us. And one of the ways is basically to help through managing some of these messages that come through the media as well.
Yeah, and this directly, all of the points that you mentioned, I think, speak directly to your own identity as a Muslim youth.
Of course.
Right?
Many of these young people, example, I would have people coming from high school and talking to me about it and telling me, today we have had this discussion and I didn't know really what to say because I have been framed in such a way. I felt framed in such a way that I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin with my own friends and my own teacher. So from that perspective, we really need then to penetrate not just government, but educational institutions as well. And thanks God, we are working on it. But what I would suggest here is that we need more than teachers in the schools. We don't have. We are actually nowhere on the map when it comes to teaching in public school system. And there are percentages of Muslim kids in public school system. In some schools, 20% plus. And we don't have any Muslim teacher out there. So all of that makes an impact on really presentation of who we are, what we need, what they can offer to us. I remember when I wrote my first book, and people asked me why you wrote it, and I was thinking really, and the idea came into my mind, and really that's what it is. That's my story. I know my story, and I want to tell my story. I want to share my story.
So this one?
Yes, that one. Yes. Second book actually goes deep down, more academic, but this one really tells that's my story of what a Muslim is all about, what Islam is all about in Canada, what Canadian Islam is all about.
Yeah.
So when we approach these things from the perspective of really caring and sharing in terms of Islam, people take it, people pick up on it.
Yeah. We are nearing the end of our. Yes, go ahead.
There are a few maybe recommendations in regards to Muslims.
Yes.
I think when I thought after I spoke to you, I spoke to Zainab, I thought about really what are some of the things that Muslims need to do. We need to develop institutions that would reflect local needs in current time. What I mean by that, we cannot only think about masajid. We have to create institutions that would be able to serve as masajid as well as any other capacity
or function. Yes.
Function. Why? Because we as Muslims, we do have human needs too. They are not only spiritual. There are many other, as I pointed out in our discussion before we started programming, I have often communicated with Muslim leaders and told them, I face challenges as an imam in terms of counseling. I'm limited. I am not of people who tell people only when they have a problem, sabr, be patient. No, we have to come with solutions. It's not enough to say, be patient, read this surah, read that surah. We need to come with, and that is exactly why we need institutions for the current time. And other things that we need for the current time are leaders.
Yeah.
We need people who are pragmatic, people who have knowledge, and people who know how to utilize that knowledge in a given situation. We cannot go around and just haramize things for our young people. We need to bring alternatives. We need to bring solutions for them. There is one thing that I thought often since I came to Canada, that people would say Canada is a non-Muslim country, it's a kafir country, it's this. I'll go like, what are you talking about? This is the best gem that you could get. This is God-given place. It's more Islamic than any so-called Muslim country. It gives you an opportunity to be yourself. This is, for me, Canada is the house of witnessing justice, possibilities. And that's how we have to explain that to our kids, where kids feel comfort. And if they face challenge, so what? Let's go face it back. I have faced challenges. I never gave up. I never gave up only for one reason, because I knew that justice system in this country cares about all. And you would get served your justice. Doesn't matter who you are. And once when you realize that, and actually from an Islamic perspective, God Almighty doesn't like place where there is no justice. Doesn't matter which place is that. Why did I come to Canada? I've been able to go to many Muslim countries. Why did I choose Canada? Because I realized that in this country, you can be yourself, you can grow, you can contribute. And if there are people who obstruct you, you can look at them, you can look them in the face and you can fight them back. And that's what beauty is all about.
Absolutely. So you have had, if I look at your journey, someone who grows up under a oppressive communist regime. You travel the world. You have done, more than your fair share of academic studies. You have been directly involved in social work. You have a number of works, some of them more personal, some of them more academic. If you were to tell me the biggest challenge that you have faced in your life, and this is the message that I want to leave the youth with, one challenge that you think this has been the biggest challenge and perhaps the biggest eye-opening hope that you have seen throughout this journey.
Just like any young person, I was on a journey to change the world. It happens to all of us. So we want to change everything around ourselves. We want to change politicians. We want to change educational system. And then all of a sudden, when you get to my age, you start realizing it is only you whom you can change. It is only you whom you can work on. I don't want you, young brothers and sisters, to come to 40, 50, and then you start changing yourself. This is the time. I'm telling you, experienced guy who has gone through it. I have seen ups and downs. So I'm trying to tell you that this is an opportunity for you. And you know that many of the people will tell you, and you can read many of the nice talks that are presented on Sheikh Google. You could find out that many of these beautiful statements are out there that tell you as a young person to cut it short. Learn at this point of time that it is only you whom you can change. And once when you change yourself, there is a big possibility that you can change your family, you can change your city, you can change your country, and you can go beyond that. So my advice to my young brothers and sisters is work on yourself, develop yourself. Potentials in Canada are beyond your imagination. Once when you are able to fulfill or to fill that heart of yours with what you want, you would be able at that point of time to give to others. Because as we say in Canada, you can only give what you have. You cannot give what you don't have. Therefore, we as Muslims, being people of kindness, people of faith, it's not only about us, it's about others. Because Prophet, peace be upon him, told us, كُلُّ مَعْرُوفٍ صَدَقَةٍ. كُلُّ مَعْرُوفٍ صَدَقَةٍ. Every act of kindness is charity for us. Therefore, advice, take care of yourself, do things for yourself. And once when you have done things for yourself, when your heart is safe, when your heart is full, you certainly need to start contributing to others. And that's where our identity is measured. To go back, your faith, your spirituality is the first element of your identity. Your knowledge shapes that identity within the context in which you operate. Of course, you have to take care of your children by educating them and sharing that knowledge with your friends and people of other faith traditions and no faith traditions. And last point is application of Islam in action, and that is your engagement and participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your teachings, for your expertise, for sharing with us your journey at a very personal level. I think it was a very, very rich episode, and hopefully the listeners and the viewers enjoyed it as much as we did here. So thank you very much for taking the time this morning, Imam Zijad, and to all of our viewers and to the Imam. May God bless, and peace until the next episode. Assalamu alaikum.